Hey y'all, and welcome to Culture Cult, where we are one podcast with 197 countries to explore travel, stories, and history from. I'm your host, Marie, and this episode we're diving into a country. So each season we feature different countries to highlight, whether it be randomly spinning on the globe, fan choice, or featuring a local from a certain country and hearing their perspective. You can have a say in the next country featured by following our Instagram at culturecultshow. Also, remember to comment, rate, and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening on. Cheers and enjoy! Hey y'all, welcome back to the second and last episode on El Salvador. Today we have another Salvadorian friend on, Alex, who's coming on, and we're going to tell a story of a Salvadorian World War II hero who saved the lives of about 40,000 Jewish people. His story isn't well known, and I really can't wait to share his heroism and his story. So before we get into that, let's invite our guest on. His name's actually Alexis, but I call him Alex because I'm disrespectful. Hi.
Very. How dare you? Yeah, hi. How you doing?
Does anyone call you Alex? Hello? Alexis?
Everyone calls me Alex. That's just really what I go by. Save everyone the trouble, that extra syllable, you know?
I know. Extra syllable. And I'm assuming this is like your first time being on a podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you even listen to podcasts?
No. Not at all.
That's what I was thinking.
If it's on my own voice, I don't want to hear it. I'm going to listen to this one for sure.
Like, why is this so highly rated?
It's the best episode by far.
I know. It's coming just from Los Angeles. So you just listen to your own voice. Okay. But you are a musician though, right?
Yes.
So I was saying you are more into music than like podcasts and stuff. But we have you on today because you're Salvadorian. Are you full, right? Like your mom and dad?
Yeah, my dad's from San Salvador, and my mom is from a place called Chalatenango.
Okay.
It's part of this little community. I believe it's a community called El Paraíso, which translates to the paradise.
Oh, damn.
I've heard a lot of things about that place. Like, I've told people that are from there, or I've told other Latin Americans that my mom's from there, and they'll say, "Oh, wow, that's where all the pretty girls are from."
Oh, have you been?
Never. Honestly, I've only heard negative things about. Well, I've heard a lot of positive things. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of traveling to third world countries, or traveling south, I hear lots of stories about people being held up for ransom. Or one of my mom's cousins, he was a shop owner, and because he didn't pay his quote unquote like protection tax, the gangs down there decapitated the guy. And I mean, it's like, who wants to travel somewhere where you run so much risk of being harmed just because people think you come from money? Let me tell you right now, I do not come from money. It's like, dude, it's like, we're gonna hold you up for ransom. Like, thank you. It's tough living.
Like, y'all, you're gonna feed me food?
Do you guys at least like have a place where I can sleep?
Like, wait, what? You're broke?
Like, it costs more to keep him here.
Yeah. That's ideal. So if you're broke, you can go to El Salvador.
Honestly, they'll do you the service down there.
Well, the last episode, Kenya, my friend Kenya, she's from El Salvador, and she does mention, beware of certain areas, but she does say it is really beautiful, and there's a lot of places you can go, and she says to stick to the ocean. There's a huge surfer community and hostel community there, but there's certain places that you should definitely do more research on and talk to locals and be like, where should I go? But I still don't think you should not travel there, because there are spots, that you can definitely go to, because if you look at the world like that, you're never going to go anywhere. I've definitely been places where I technically should not have gone because I would have looked at the news or just heard other people's stories. But I think you should go experience things yourselves. But you should do that with context and with asking people. Like, if I go to El Salvador, I'm definitely going to be asking Kenya, okay, where should I avoid? Where should I go? And I think in certain countries you should travel with people who are from there. I really want to go with Kenya to her hometown. It's very country. Sounds so beautiful.
Tell her to take me too. Please.
Yeah. Because I think you should get closer to your heritage. Like, do you feel connected to your culture at all?
Actually, not at all. I would say I work in the industry, like the food industry, hospitality industry is what they call it. And there's just an overwhelming amount of people from Mexico that work in the industry, like back of house for the most part. And it's really hard to get like a full-fledged Salvadorian to be like, oh my God, you're Salvadorian. Like, it's happened. Don't get me wrong. It's not impossible. But it's very rare that it happens, and I hardly get any insight aside from, oh, it's very beautiful out there. You should go visit. Have you ever visited? It's very plain.
See, you should go visit.
I should, and I absolutely will one day.
Yeah.
But I gotta
can't live in fear.
So good.
We live in LA, dude. If you look up news stories here, you would leave right now. You would pack your shit and leave.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, literally. Don't look at the news, y'all. But I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think no, it is supposed to be supposedly very beautiful. And LA, like you were born here, right? And like, I think LA is definitely like lots of Mexican culture here. You were saying the other day, like all the food trucks is Mexican food, not.
There's like a food truck at every corner. It's like becoming like a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your area, in your neck of the woods, there's definitely a lot of Salvadorian pop-ups. But I mean, as far as food goes, I'm not too familiar with food aside from just like the most popular pupusas, panes con pollo. Have you ever had panes con pollo?
Mm-mm. What's that?
It's like literally translates to like chicken and bread. It's like chicken sandwiches.
Okay.
They put radish and beets, and they put lettuce.
Yum.
And
I love beets.
I mean, now that I'm a lot older and I appreciate a lot more food, I can say that those sandwiches are pretty fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the breakfast. The breakfast is so good.
Oh my God. Okay. Wait. And the breakfast.
Yeah.
Ooh, the liquefied beans with the cheese and the crema salvadoreña,
Yeah. Dude, the cremas, what's up?
It's like sweet.
Yeah.
That's what gives it that little edge.
The breakfast is sweet and salty. You got the plantains, but then you have like the beans and like the eggs and the crema. Oh my God, it's definitely one of those breakfasts though that you're not like, I'm gonna go conquer the day. You're like, I'm gonna go lay down.
Really?
I think so.
I eat that and I want to conquer the
Oh
day.
my God, I need to lay down. It's soul food. It tastes like soul food.
It is soul food, actually. You're right. I'll give you that. Without being, just being completely candid. That's like my number one. Like dream dish. If I were on death row, and they told me you get one last meal, well, obviously that's what they would tell me, but I would choose the Salvadorian breakfast.
Yeah. Oh my God, breakfast is so good. Y'all definitely should check it out. Definitely, especially if you're in LA, like come to my part of town near downtown. Get you some Salvadorian food. Besides the food, okay, I know you said you don't feel very connected to your culture, so maybe this is a challenging question for you. But then, what's your favorite thing about being Salvadorian? Do you think there's parts of you can be thankful because you're Salvadorian? Humor, it could be like, I don't know what you think, philosophy, I don't know, lifestyle.
That's tough. I feel like my mom doesn't necessarily or didn't necessarily implant these like, this is your heritage onto us. But what I've learned from my mom for the most part, and this is just something that I don't know if it's a like Latin American thing, I don't know if it's just an old traditional thing, but she taught me how to be hospitable. And I think like hearing my mom's story, she left home really early on. She learned how to cook by working at a restaurant as a 16-year-old.
Wow.
She traveled up north, I think, to kind of get away from home. And she just kind of got a job as a waitress. And I think there's just like a very humble, very graceful hospitality that comes from her. I don't know if that's a Salvadorian thing. I don't know if that's an old, like, because I mean, I don't see those values in people that are born in this country. But if there's one thing I feel like I learned, it's like this really big sense of hospitality and learning how to care for others. I feel like older generations are very proud of where they come from.
Definitely.
And that's just very beautiful to see, because I mean, I'm sure like we're also proud of where we come from, and we're proud of our own accomplishments and what, our country for the most part. I'm not saying I'm like America, but like we just relish in our accomplishments. And I feel like they also like older generation or these first generationers, they come and they're just so content from where they come from, and they just hold on to that, which is really beautiful. And that's one of those things, like hospitality is huge.
Definitely. And like, how does your mom describe El Salvador? Like, what's her story?
Well, I think there's a lot of like hurt in my mom, because she's always talking about how the country's always been war torn, and how politicians in power, they always just steal money and they're very corrupt. And it just goes to show with all the gang activity out there that it's true. It's a very poverty stricken country. And whenever she does bring it up, like, sure, she brings up these beautiful places. Like, oh my God, you have to go there. The mountain ranges are amazing, and it's just so beautiful to see. And everyone in the villages, they're so sweet to each other. Everyone knows each other by name. You can go to the corner store and be like, hey, you know what? I don't have I don't have enough to pay for this today, but do you think I can come back tomorrow and pay for you? And because everyone's so sweet to each other and it's just like a big community that look out for each other, that it's okay, you know, amongst themselves. She speaks about it like that. But then there's also days where she speaks about how she had to flee the country because it was just so war torn. And she talks about how her family used to have all this land to them, but because, you know, the armies came through and were just taking land, and you know, like her family lost so much land and so much, you know, so much of their money and so much of just everything that they had because of all these different factors. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of pain in her heart. You know, I think she talks about it in a beautiful light as a kid, but the older she gets, I feel like the more she talks about these traumatic things that happened to her. So, you know, I get like the best of both worlds, you know, for the most part.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So she left on her own?
Yeah, well, I think what she said was that she left with her siblings, luckily, because my mom is Honduran as well. Like, she was born in El Salvador, but she's part Honduran. So she had a family in Honduras, and there was a war going on, and I'm actually not too sure what it was, because...
It's like the football war. It's blamed on like a football match, but there was a war between El Salvador and Honduras.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was around like the 80s, I think.
She did say that there was it was like Honduran armies and Salvadoran armies and things of such. But
I'm assuming. I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe I should do more research. But honestly, like you say, you know, I think the key, one of the key phrases for this podcast will be ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, literally.
It's like, that's sad. Dang. Anyway. Okay. Was it like, damn, that's crazy.
Damn, that's crazy. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Pupusas. No, I mean, I did want to talk about, I kind of realized with like this, I wanted to talk about the war a little bit, give you all some background, what kind of relates to what your mom was saying. We're not going to talk about war this whole episode, but it's really important because our country is very much the reason they have war. And yet I don't think a lot of Americans know what or where El Salvador is. I'm talking from my own end. Like before I came out here, someone could have said El Salvador. I'd be like, what? What'd you say?
What do you eat that with?
Yeah. Does it come with crema? And it's just so ironic because our country is a big reason why there's so much death and pain, why your mom experienced so much. And so I wanted to give a little bit of education on it. So it's a brief couple minute cover of El Salvador's Civil War, America's involvement. I'm going to cover this to my best ability. This is just like from hearing a little about Kenya's story, and then her personal stories are horrific, but this is just mainly like some facts. So from my understanding, from my research, El Salvador's independence came in 1860, and they became a huge coffee exporter. And some people got really, really wealthy. And between 1880 and 1890, the government privatized communal land, favoring wealthy Europeans and taking away land from the locals. So people like your mom's family, they had a lot of land. The government's like, well, we have Europeans who are going to take this and make more money with the coffee, so we're going to take your land. So now the pot's boiling because land's taken away, wages are shrinking from all the coffee laborers, and just tensions are rising. In 1960, the U.S. made a program called the Alliance for Progress, which funded education, housing, which sounds great. But on the back end, they funded the military to fight communism. So I'm paraphrasing, I'm skipping a lot. So think of this as a Spark Notes. There's a lot of documentaries on it. But again, think about this. Tensions are building. People are getting stripped away from their land. Their wages are getting less. And now the government's being funded by one of the biggest countries in the world. So a lot of refugees went to Honduras, actually. Maybe that's a little bit why your mom has Honduras descent. But they were forced to come back after the Honduras and Salvadoran War. So now you have a flush of people coming back with, there's not a lot of land. Wages are already strict. Now you have people coming, hundreds of people coming back from Honduras. Something's about to happen, you know? And
there's a lot of tension building.
A lot of tension. So in the 1970s, a 12-year civil war broke out, and there was a guerrilla Marxist group called the FMLN, and these are mainly fed-up laborers. They were funded by... You're looking at my notes. Don't look at my notes. This is... No, you can't look at it.
I mean, you got me hooked.
No. As I say, look at me. I'm telling you.
Damn, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
Did you write this?
Yes. So essentially you got tensions are rising. You got two groups happening. The guerrilla Marxist group called the FMLN. Mainly these are just fed up laborers who they've just been stripped of everything. And they were funded by the communist countries. And then you got the US who are like, no. And they are pouring money into the Salvadoran government, the politicians, and the military. So that's where these stories of pain that we hear from Kenya's and like from your moms is because the civilians suffer the most. I mean, there's some really disturbing stories that I watched on documentaries that are just not like History Channel documentaries. These are very like graphic documentaries that I saw of civilians being like mowed down in rivers by the government.
Not just that. There's my mom, you know, I didn't want to speak about this, but since we're going to be on the more graphical spectrum, she tells me that there was a lot of young women that were taken advantage of during these wars, you know, and it's just messed up. So you got people dying, you got people being killed, stripped of their lands, being utilized to the fullest until they just snap and break and they just want to fight back. And then you got people being taken advantage of and just traumatized for life. And it's brutal. El Salvador's definitely been through a lot.
It's been through a lot.
My mom tells me that as well.
Yeah. And that's why you have like gangs, because gangs come from poverty. They need to make money somehow.
Absolutely.
There's no economy. So like keep that in mind when you go to El Salvador. It's a country that has a history, a very, very recent history. There's going to be a lot of pain, but at the same time, there's so much love that I'm getting a feeling from this country. And they need the tourism. And that's why so many surfers are flocking to El Salvador. Some of the best waves in the world are in El Salvador. So that's what I'm saying. If you like hostels, if you like surfing, I would say stick to the ocean side. And a lot of surfers Salvadorian surfers find surfing an escape from the gangs because they're out there in the water all day. It's a great way to use their time. So it's a big lifesaver for Salvadorians who live there that have only that as an option. So it's super freaking fascinating. I didn't want to cover that as an entire episode. I just think it's important. Like, yes, this podcast is all about having fun. We shoot the shit a lot, but we can't ignore that the country that I'm living in right now, that I was born into, affects so many. It has a lot of destruction to it, as it does greatness, but it has a lot of destruction. And we don't need to ignore the fact that we had a hand in a lot of pain in El Salvador. So
is this redemption? Is that why you had me on the show?
Yeah. I was like, I just want to say sorry.
This is like the equivalent of like giving a homeless something to eat and just putting a camera in their face. I relinquished the guilt by having a Salvadorian on.
I know. But yeah, so to lighten this up, I did want to read out some random facts about El Salvador. So here we go. If you are a Bitcoin person, officially legal tender in El Salvador is Bitcoin.
Yeah. My mom was telling me about that. She said like the new president, he allowed that to be the official tender. Yeah,
if you're like a Bitcoin person, you can go throw some coins on some pupusas in El Salvador.
That's the thing. I don't even know. Like, what is like 3 Bitcoin per pupusa?
Yeah, right? Can you buy a pupusa with a Bitcoin?
That's a good question.
But there's this guy I watched. He calls Drew Binsky. He's a big traveler, and he was just exchanging it in ATMs and stuff. So I don't know. If y'all are into that, go do that.
Go to El Salvador. Spend your Bitcoin.
Yeah, spend that coin. But it's also the land of volcanoes. It has over 20 volcanoes, and this country is tiny, y'all. This is not a big country. It has 20 volcanoes, and some of them are active. So a lot of volcanoes up in here.
That's lit.
It looks really cool though. Okay, next fact. This is not a fact. This is an observation. But according to this website, onhisowntrip.com, when he traveled there and stuff, he said Salvadorians are really polite, super hospitable, like you were saying, but it's custom to be 30 to 40 minutes late.
Oh,
and you were late
God.
today.
I was.
So you kind of might be Salvadorian.
I think. Wow. I mean, honestly, you're kind of just blowing my mind right now. You're like, yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm Salvadorian. Okay, it's in my blood.
It's in my blood.
I wanted to be here on time, but then just something happened. The Salvadorian in me came out.
Don't be racist. I'm Salvadorian.
Yeah.
I'm late.
That's true. I can use that.
You can use it.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. This is the last fact I found. I love this fact. It's really important. The largest pretzel in the world was made in El Salvador. According to the Guinness World Records, this humongous piece of baked pastry weighed 1,728 pounds, and its length and width measured 8.93 meters and something else. Lots of math. It's fucking huge.
Who?
I know.
What? Salvadorians aren't known for pretzels. What is this random
The largest pretzel in the world.
Well, they're like, either we join a gang or we just make a big ass pretzel. Fuck it.
It's community building.
My money's on the pretzel.
Yeah.
Those
are your options down there.
Why couldn't it be the largest pupusa?
I know, right? The pretzel.
A pretzel.
It's not even like Salvadorian food. It's just a pretzel. And my other questions. like how much time was spent in this, and like does the whole community have to get involved? Is everyone forced to eat it after?
That everyone ate the pretzel. Come on, they're not just gonna
I don't know,
throw a 1,000-pound pretzel in the ocean and just call it a day.
Imagine seeing that floating. It's not sinking, y'all. It's just floating to this day.
They're like, what have we done?
I don't know, dude. I'm thinking it might sound fun at first, like, yeah, let's eat it. And then it becomes a chore. It's like, oh.
You're not wrong, though. They probably had pretzel for like a week.
More than a week, dude. Everyone has like gluten allergy now.
Oye, mijo, te comes ese maldito pretzel, eh?
So apparently that's where that is about. The largest pretzel in the world is in El Salvador.
I did not know that. I'm going to talk to my mom about this and be like, hey, what do you know about pretzels?
She gives you a look.
She looks at me like, how do you know? I didn't know that. That's actually...
Guinness World Record. This is the largest pretzel in the world. But yeah, we covered some of your culture. Or I actually learned a little bit about your culture. And then the messed up Civil War, the pretzel. But before we dive into our heroic story of today, I did want to feature a trailer from a really awesome podcast with the coolest name ever. It's called Vulgar History.
Ever heard of the medieval English queen who used boiling beer and attack bees to successfully repel the Vikings? Or the princess in Renaissance Sweden who turned to a life of piracy? What about the 17th century Angolan princess who executed a man for daring to criticize her active sex life? These are just 3 women profiled on Vulgar History, a feminist women's history comedy podcast. My name is Ann Foster, and the goal of this podcast is to share the stories of history's most scandalous women, both those you've never heard of, as well as taking a new look at ones whose stories you thought you knew. Vulgar History is available on all podcasting platforms. Hope you take a listen.
Okay, but let's jump into our story for today. First of all, are you a history person? Have you ever been interested in history or historical stories?
I'm going to give you a no on that.
Okay, why though? Why?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. While I do believe that we can learn a lot from our history because, they say, history always repeats itself.
It does.
I can't help but to feel like there's just a lot of boring stuff. Like, I mean...
You've been told it badly.
Probably. I mean, the last time I learned proper history was in high school. Yeah. In a textbook. But I mean, it's a lot more interactive when I learn them like this. Or for the most part, it's just interesting facts. I think the way that it does get presented to you is a huge factor of how you absorb it. And
they're trying to cover thousands of years of history in like one semester. So it's like
American history for the most part.
Yeah, but you can't get personal with these people's stories. These are real life people that lived. And like you can't get personal because they're like, okay, let's jump 100 years.
Yeah, but also how much of it is real? Mm-hmm. How much of it wasn't just made up by the person? The history. What is it? What's that line? Like
really winners write the history.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. It's like how much of it is actually real history as opposed to what was written in a book because so and such won this war.
Yeah, and people like used to burn libraries and books too. So just to keep that perspective. So you're so right. We do have to keep it in mind, like especially with American history, how things are written. But
especially with your people's history.
Your people, but you were born here. Now he's all Salvadorian shit.
No, I'm a Salvadorian all of a sudden.
Yeah. Suddenly,
I'm connected to my heritage all of a sudden.
No, I always like to ask that question because I think most people are not into history, but I think it's important because these are real people, just like me and you, and they've had job issues or heartbreaks, or they got excited about going somewhere with friends. Like these are real people. They just accomplished or had life really happen to them, and that's why it's written down. I think it's just important to keep that in mind. These are not just dates in a history book. Oh, I personally am biased. I've always been interested in history because I'm just like, I can't believe this shit happened.
Honestly, sometimes I feel that way too.
Yeah, so it's important to look into your own history also. Because like one thing could have changed and boom, you're not here. Or you would have been different. Who knows? That's why I'm so excited to tell the story today. Because I would love to know if your mom even knows about this dude. About the guy I'm about to tell. Because he's very, very, very much not known. But I do want to know do you know who Oskar Schindler is? Have you heard that name?
Like from Schindler's List?
Yes. Yeah, so you've watched, or have you heard the movie Schindler's List? Have you watched it?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I just like threw a random thing that just came to mind. I've never watched the movie. I don't even know what that is.
You need to watch that movie. It's like a cinema. Oh my God, it's amazing.
A cinematography masterpiece.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. I was crying for days, but it's so fucking good. So Oskar Schindler, most people are very, very, very well known with Oskar Schindler. He was a German industrialist who saved about 1,200 Jewish people from the Holocaust, which is an incredible feat on its own. And he has a movie about him, and he's a very important person. But no one really talks about the Salvadorian Colonel José Castellanos. He saved 40,000 people from dying in concentration camps, and definitely isn't a movie about him like Schindler's List. So let's start from the beginning. José Arturo Castellanos Contreras was born in San Vicente, El Salvador in 1893. And I looked up that city. It looks really pretty. It's the second largest city in Central America. He was born into a really well-off family, and early on he joined the military, and he rose to the rank of colonel and became the second commanding chief in the Salvadoran army. So jump ahead. In 1938, he was sent abroad to Liverpool, England, and then to Hamburg, Germany as El Salvador's new consulate, which is really, I can already imagine how shocking that would have been, because it's like, El Salvador's tiny.
Yeah, and also, I mean, a language difference, you know?
Yeah, right? German from Spanish. I know German, you know Spanish, and I can tell you they're very different. Apparently, I have a lot of German listeners, so like, hello, wie geht's to y'all?
Oh, I only know like one thing. It's like, is it Kaffee und Milch, bitte?
Oh, yeah, Kaffee und Milch, bitte. Coffee with milk, please.
That's all I know.
That's all you need to know. But yeah, essentially, he went all the way to Germany and to England, so big culture shock. But we also have to talk about what's going on in Europe and in the war around this time. It's 1938, so pretty pivotal moment. Hitler invades Czechoslovakia, and on September 9th, 1938, there was a really famous night known as Kristallnacht. Have you heard of this? Do you remember learning about it?
Never.
Oh, never. I know you learned about this, but it's a very famous night.
Okay, let's be honest. I was a real underachiever in high school.
Okay. Well, most of y'all have probably heard this, the Kristallnacht. It was the night of broken glass. It's a story that's told way too much in human history, and even in today's countries such as Palestine, which I'm going to cover next season. But essentially, this night is of people going to bed, thinking about work the next morning, maybe something to look forward to with friends, and a feeling of normalcy. And then everything changes in a night. And in that night, 1938, thousands of shops and religious temples were broken into. They were set on fire. They were destroyed. People were dragged out of their homes, arrested, and then sent to concentration camps. Or at this point, definitely sent to the ghettos.
That's horrible.
Yeah, all in one night. Everyone's lives were changed. So, I mean, and this happens today in lots of places, but this is a very famous night called Kristallnacht. 30,000 people were taken out of their homes and put into ghettos, and 40 people died that night. So it was a really, really huge wake-up call to Jewish people and other minorities, such as like if you were gay, or if you they're called gypsies, but they're actually called the Romani people. If you were Romani people, it was a big wake-up call that you need to get out.
Is that what they're actually called, the Romani people?
Mm-hmm. They're not.
If I were to say like a gypsy, I'd be referring to a Romani individual. Interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah. I'm learning about Romania right now. So that's how I'm learning about like the gypsy culture, the Romani people. So I learned that just recently.
Did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah. But the people think it was just Jewish people that were put into concentration camps. But 1,000%, it was anyone who was a minority. If you weren't Aryan, if you weren't blonde, blue-eyed, pure German, you were gone. So huge wake-up call to a lot of minorities that they need to leave Europe right now. So at the same time, Jose is in Europe, and he meets his wife, and he also meets his friend that will change his life and so many other lives forever. Sorry, continue.
No, I was going to say, so Jose met his wife, and he also met Oscar?
Oscar, he doesn't know Oscar. Okay. He meets a friend and a Romanian and Jewish businessman, George Mandel. So he's meeting very, very influential people in his life. Jump to 1942, and El Salvador declares war on Germany. And so at this point, the world's kind of deciding, like, are you going to be with Germany? Are you going to be an ally, or on the Axis side?
Right.
So on the Axis, I believe it's Germany, Japan, Italy. And then on the other side are like US, Britain, blah, blah. And El Salvador decides like they're going to be on the ally side.
Am I crazy? Wasn't Russia on the Axis side?
Russia was on the ally side.
Interesting.
Germany tried to invade Russia many, many, many times. But Russia is a very hard country to invade. Okay,
well, pardon my ignorance. I don't know why I thought that.
No. I mean, like, it makes sense because real quick history lesson. After World War II, that's why Germany was split into two. It was Berlin specifically. There's the East and the West.
Right.
The Russians took half. The U.S. took half. That's why they were all against communism and all that stuff. It's because the Russians were about communism. The U.S. is about democracy. Blah, blah, blah. It trickles all the way down to El Salvador, where they were like anti-communists. I don't know if
That's ironic, actually.
Yeah. So that's why I love history. Like little tiny decisions that we make ripple into everything.
Have you ever thought about being some type of history teacher or?
Oh, I would love that. That'd be fun.
I feel like you have such a fascinating way of telling these stories and you seem really knowledgeable. I don't know why you wouldn't ever pursue some type of career in teaching. I mean, I'm hooked. I'm like, damn.
That's all I want. I want people to be interested in history. It's so important
good.
because it's all the way from your mom having to leave El Salvador can be trickled all the way fucking down to this. Like
True.
in a very long string. But yeah, I mean, essentially like Russia joined the U.S. against Germany. El Salvador joined the Allies. They were like, we are not about this. I don't know if any of that made sense because it's kind of hard to connect those two, but I hope that made sense.
Well, I mean, I think if we're talking just like in terms of just El Salvador as a country and everything that they've been through and, you know, the culture that is applied there to anyone growing up. Like, I mean, this guy, Jose, he didn't have to get involved in any of these aspects, but I feel like he's such a passionate person and he's learned to be hospitable and he's learned to care about others that he got involved through these influential people to help make a difference, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I understand what you're saying entirely. It's like this little thread that is like the lifespan of El Salvador and these little tugs that essentially create these vibrations and that are the stories of El Salvador.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, he definitely gets involved. And so but essentially like El Salvador declares war on Germany and Jose has to move somewhere else. Because right now he's in Germany. And so he has to go somewhere neutral. What's the most neutral place in the world? Switzerland.
Oh!
Hey, you do know history.
I was going to say it, but I
know you were going to say it. You do know history.
Okay.
I'm proud of you.
Wow, I don't know.
You get a little point, a little history
what?
point.
Please, I'll take that point.
Super proud of you.
Where do I win? A Salvadoran breakfast.
I mean, I'm down. Honestly, that was a good point. But also, I'm going to give you a little point on the podcast too.
Oh,
yeah, a little ding.
Now you're just giving him out. Okay.
No, that was good. I'm very impressed. So he moves to Switzerland and he brings George's family with him because remember George is Jewish. And despite the horrors everyone knew about what's happening to the Jewish people facing them, El Salvador, yes, they're declared war on Germany, but they refuse to let in refugees. They don't want to take in any refugees.
I mean, I'm sure because of everything that even they've been through, there wasn't any land for them, like Salvadorian natives, right?
It's very true.
So how could they accept all these newcomers to take up what, these little government housings?
Yeah, that's true. But Jose was not about it though.
He's not. He was like, come on.
Yeah, like I think because El Salvador is all the way over here. You know, they might be hearing stuff through the grapevine, but like he's there. He's hearing what's happening to these people, being in concentration camps, being gassed to death,
That's
medical
horrible.
testing. He's closer to the source, so I think he had more empathy for it,
Right.
more understanding. So imagine, put yourself in these people's shoes. Like whether you're Jewish, you're a Romani person, maybe you're gay, you're not an Aryan German person. You need to leave the country now.
Yeah.
Everyone around you is getting plucked. And you hear just from the grapevine, there's people being gassed to death, being trapped. There's people being starved. People are 40 pounds.
You have to literally give up everything that you've ever worked for in your life and start anew.
But you can't figure a way out though, because a lot of countries are not taking refugees at this point in 1942. So imagine how trapped that must feel. Like you got to get out of the country very quickly. It's a scary feeling.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So you're just so desperate. And you're just trying to find anyone could help. So Jose, again, closer to the source, decided to disobey his president's orders and help people leave Germany. He did that first by saving George Mandel's family, who was Jewish, his best friend. He made George's name more Latin from Mandel to Monteo and gave him a fake position, which was the first secretary of the Geneva consulate, and issued Salvadorian nationality papers to George's family. So he saved his friend's family. From here, Jose and George teamed up together in secret and started issuing free Salvadorian passports and visas to thousands of Jews. But at this rate, I mean, Germans killing Jewish people like at a systematical rate. This is not just like mass shootings or anything. It's organized. It's happening. they need to find a faster way. 1,000 people is not enough. So they discreetly send 13,000 certificates of Salvadoran citizenships, offering them deportation, offering them protection from being sent to these camps. This went behind helping Jews in Germany, but also Poland, Hungary, France, Czechoslovakia. And this is all while keeping this behind his government and the Swiss government. He did this all underhand. He convinced the Swiss Geneva that this was all legitimate, like that Salvador is all about it. But he was just doing this all
under
in
the
secret.
table.
Yeah, under the table. And this is like, at this point, he's served about like 14,000 visas. And he's just like, hey guys, like this is normal. El Salvador is all about it. We're good. Risking him probably be put in prison for it. So, I mean, I'm kind of wondering like how the people are getting in contact with him. I guess it's just word of mouth.
So they migrated over to El Salvador? Is that what you're telling me?
Essentially, he was giving people visas to be deported to El Salvador.
Right. So there's Jewish descendants in El Salvador.
There's a bunch of Jewish people in El Salvador because of Jose.
Wow, that's kind of weird. That's like, well, not weird. Sorry. Like, that's amazing. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just like thinking to myself, it's like full circle because I've heard this from my mom.
What, really?
But through like a a religious aspect. So I've always kind of just tuned it out a little bit. But she's always been like, there's Jewish blood in El Salvador and whatnot. And I don't know what. And it's just like, I've always been like, oh, yeah, okay, they're Christian. Got it. But
what? That's crazy.
It's because, I mean, let's be real. Like, I'm sure that there's, now that I think back, there's like truth to what she said. But I just think in the way that she displayed it or she communicated it was very just reminiscent of just like what I never wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of mind blown right now.
Yeah, she's telling you history just in her own way.
Yeah, it's like
her own the only way she knows how to probably tell things, and so there is history to what she's saying in between the context of things, and at this point he's given about 13,000 certificates to Jewish people, but for 2 years they continued doing this discreetly, and they saved thousands of people. But in 1944, 1 year before the war ends, Jose is given permission from El Salvador to do this openly, which is important because around like 1944, especially as you get closer to 1945, Germany is kind of seeing they're going to lose. That's why eventually Hitler kills himself, and they start killing Jewish people at a utmost
alarming rate.
Yeah, because they're like, well, we need to kill y'all before like anyone gets here.
This is so horrible. Like
up, it gives me chills. It's just so sickening. So, just thinking about like as the war goes on, as it gets closer to an end, they're killing people faster. So it's even more important that Jose gets people out. So, but they do get permission from El Salvador around 1944. They moved to a glass factory where they had more space to produce more citizenship papers. He was able to save around 30,000 to 40,000 Jewish people in total. From starving in camps or being gassed to death or being medically tested, he saved all of them, around 40,000 people.
Was he saving them before they ended up at the camps?
Yeah,
or he was actually like doing some type of reconnaissance and rescue missions from the actual camps?
I don't think anything from the camps from my research, but he's getting people out before they could go to the ghettos and therefore going to the camps. So
tragic, man.
So I don't think he could help people once they were caught, but that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people to save. And he gave so many people a second chance at life that was going to be brutally stolen from them. And to me, this shows how much one person effect they can do. You could have one person, Hitler, and a bunch of other people, Himmler, all these other people in his party that can destroy at such a harsh rate. But at the same time, you have 1 to 2 people saving, like making such an impact, So it kind of just makes you think like how much you could make an impact too.
What happened? You said he got the okay from the government at the end of the day?
At 1944. So after 2 to 3 years of doing it secretly.
Was he ever charged with anything?
Mm-mm.
I mean, not that I wished him any harm or anything, but just curious as to how the government responded after finding out that he was doing it in secret.
I'm not sure if they ever knew he did it in secret. Maybe he just kept saying, hey, we need to do this. And then they finally came around and they're like, yeah, we should probably be doing that.
Well, I mean, we see a lot of Jewish people in El Salvador, so I guess it's already happening. They probably just noticed that there was a lot of...
Yeah, they're like, wait, why are a lot of synagogues popping up?
Yeah. Like, wait.
Wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think after a couple thousand, you start to realize that it's not just Salvadorians inhabiting El Salvador anymore.
Yeah. Because it is a tiny country. It's really not a big country. That's a good question though, but I don't think he ever got caught. It's just more like he convinced, especially at the end of the war, we kind of see that Germany's losing. Like he convinced the president, like, this is the right thing to do, you know?
Well, he's a very, very privileged man to have been able to not only accomplish such an amazing feature, but also to have gotten away with any reprimanding of the government. Mm-hmm. Because that's, I don't know, I can't ever imagine the United States being so forgiving. You said this wasn't in any documentary you've ever watched?
No, there's no documentary on it. His family eventually made like a small short film, and it was a live and concert film done in New York. It's really beautiful. You can watch it on YouTube. I'm going to have posted it in the show notes, but essentially like his family hired all these classical musicians and they tell his story through pictures and through like essentially like a glorified PowerPoint, but there's no documentary.
Glorified.
I mean, it's like a beautiful PowerPoint, you know, of pictures and like telling the story with music. I really shrunk that down. Sorry. It's not a movie. It's a
glorified PowerPoint
with music. Whatever, y'all. It's really, I watched it. It's really beautiful. But essentially, he came back to El Salvador after the war. He just moved back to his to a little country town and just kind of lived out his days. And no one really knew about him until a writer named Leon Uris, or maybe Uris, tracked him down in 1972. And while he was retired, Jose only gave one interview. And it was with Leon. And it was just briefly on the radio. And then a year later, he passed away. So
he knew his story had to get out. He's like, this is my time. And then next year, he's like,
seriously. He only gave one interview.
That's remarkable. Do you think that he only gave one interview because only one person came to find him? Or do you think because he was finally ready to share his story?
I don't know how Leon found him.
I'm sure through word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know, through
people
the Jewish
this
community.
guy saved my life.
This guy was like, why are there so many Jewish people in El Salvador? Like, bro, I came to surf. Why are they asking me to join their synagogue group?
I came to surf. Oh my God. But I do have this quote from his daughter, Frida Garcia. She recalls that her father played down his heroism and really talked about the thousands of lives that he saved. Quote, whenever I asked him, he would just say he didn't do anything another person in his place wouldn't have done.
That's not true.
I don't think he talked about it.
He was too humble.
Which I think comes with being a Salvadorian, though, honestly, because I think the more I learn about them, they're just very low-key people.
You're right.
Yeah, I think he's really incredible, but he did start to get honored. So in 1999, the Jerusalem City Council honored Jose, and in 2010, several Jewish survivors approached the Salvadoran embassy in Israel, and he was given the Yad Vashem, which is Israel's official monument to victims of the Holocaust. And the title, Righteous Among Nations, for non-Jewish individuals who risked their lives to save Jewish people from the Holocaust. Also, I was just saying, 2 of his grandchildren made a 60-minute live concert documentary about him to honor him. It's called The Rescue. So I have the link of it into the show notes. It's a really beautiful way to honor him. But I definitely did want to shed light on some of the irony of this story. So the irony of this is a lot of people were saved from the Holocaust, and a lot of them went to what is now called the State of Israel. And I'm going to talk about this in the next season on Palestine. But all this horrors that you might have felt throughout the story is happening now to the Palestinians. Their land was taken from them, from the British and from the UN, and given to a lot of people from the Holocaust for the British and UN needs. And these people from the Holocaust definitely needed to go somewhere.
What do you mean for their needs?
So they could have political control in the Middle East if they own Israel. So again, kind of like that backhand thing they did in El Salvador, where they're like, we're going to give you education, housing. We're also going to fund the military. That's what they're doing here. So all these people from Holocaust were displaced. They really did need to go somewhere. And Jewish descent does come from the land of Palestine. So that's not all wrong. But I'm just saying history shouldn't repeat themselves. And now the state of Israel it's crystal knocked every single day for the Palestinians. They're being pushed out, killed. It's happening again. So let's look at this story not and think of it as like oh, what a horrible thing that happened in the past. Thank God we're good today. The people who were his ancestors are from the Holocaust are doing it today to Palestinians. It's so fascinating to me. So we can be better than this. And something I do recommend is a Instagram account called Jewish People for Peace. This is not all Israelis. I know I have a lot of listeners from Israel, and this is not all Jewish people. I'm just saying, as humans, we're repeating ourselves. So let's not look at history as something that's happened in the past. It's happening today, and let's call it out too. So I wanted to give that a little bit of a rant on that, and we're going to be going into Palestine next season. I wanted to postpone it for this season because I have people from Palestine that want to speak, and I need more time to cover it, make sure I cover it correctly.
And it's a story that's still unfolding, right?
It's still unfolding. So it's not something we can just look back and close the book and be like, woo, that was crazy. It's happening right now. And I know I have a huge percentage of people who listen to podcasts who are from Israel. Please contact me at culturecultshow@gmail.com if you want to have your side of the story too. And I want your perspective. But this is happening into Palestine right now. This crystal knocked every day for them. So I know that's a little bit not El Salvadorian. This has nothing to do with El Salvador, but let's not let history repeat itself.
I mean, it's not El Salvador, but like you said, there's parallels.
Parallels, yeah.
That you can draw from here.
Yeah. So I know this is a heavier episode. We talked a lot about war. We talked a lot about like the big pretzel that's taking over El Salvador.
The rumor has it that you could still see it on Google Maps if you zoom into El Salvador.
They all have gluten allergies. So I think this is stuff that's so important to cover. And I think Jose is just, my God, like we have so much to look. What a proud, like as Salvadorians, you should be so proud of that person came from your country, you know?
Yeah, I am pretty proud.
No, y'all also, I was still saying like y'all have awesome people coming from your country though. I've just from learning like my friends and like Jose's awesome.
I feel like while Jose is an amazing feature for this episode, I still can't get over the fact that being late is in my genes. No. You honestly blew my mind with that one. You gave me a pass. You know what? I'd like to think I'm on time, but after today, I'm Salvadorian.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing that you learned today?
Honestly, I'd say that the fact that the country that my parents are from, it's a very surfer town place. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know that. But not just that. Apparently, there's volcanoes. It sounds like quite the landscape. It
looks beautiful. Lots of nature. And yes, you can talk about these gangs and stuff, but don't let that stop you from traveling.
That's true. I think you've opened my eyes to a different perception. I think the older I get, the more I realize that these are just fears that I can get over or I can overcome easily. No, because you're right. There's alternatives. It's like not just thinking the worst and, oh, okay, that's it. Story closed, or book closed. It's finding alternatives to maybe not stand out or finding places to go to that aren't as dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I think that you've shed some desperately needed light onto traveling, and not just to El Salvador, to other countries. Like I've talked to you about traveling multiple times. So just know that you've inspired me.
Oh, yay.
To not only go to El Salvador, but I would love to go to Germany too.
Yeah, Germany.
Switzerland is another place that sounds really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds very neutral.
Very neutral. It is. Switzerland's awesome. But yeah, and that's like not a fact, like advice for anybody like who want to travel. Maybe you haven't traveled yet. Definitely maybe try something first if you haven't done it first. And then once you get acclimated to how you are as a traveler. But there's certain places, like don't count anything off your list. Just talk. Sometimes you have to learn a little bit more. Talk to the locals. And you're going to miss out on so many good things living in fear in life. Like I want to go to El Salvador and I'm a woman. I just have to be more careful and just observe a little bit more, but I'm going to miss out on learning how to surf and meeting Kenya's family and going into all these nature hikes. I miss all that just because I have a perception.
My mom always tells me that I should go visit my dad's side of the family. Mm-hmm. Apparently my mom's mom worked for my dad's family when she was younger.
Oh, wow.
Apparently my dad's family comes from means over there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still even the case, but she talks very highly of them.
You should definitely go visit your family. You should definitely go see where you're from. And hey, you should honestly look if you're Jewish. If you're Salvadoran, like, who knows if your ancestry is Jewish because of Jose? That's also something cool to look into. I don't know. I really, really loved learning about El Salvador, and I hope you like learning about yourself.
It was fascinating. Thank you. Thank you for having me and teaching me.
Yeah. And to wrap up the episode, I do want to go over the sources that I had. Okay, the first one is onhisOwnTrip.com, gumnutsabroad.com. Okay. That was for the fun facts. For the story, we have history.howstuffworks.com, historyofyesterday.com, castellanosmovie.com, haaretz.com, and aljazeera.com, and migrationpolicy.org. Okay, so also it's just some business corner. If y'all just could leave a quick rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to. It takes 2 seconds, but it really does mean the world to me, and it really helps get the show out there to more people. Also, if you're a passionate fan, if you want more for the show, we have a cult membership for $5 a month. You get episodes early, secret episodes. I just recorded a really good secret episode about New Orleans. That was really fun that you'll get. And at the end of the episodes, you get an extra fun 15 minutes with me and the guest. We just mess around. We read really weird world news stories. And yeah, if you want to join the cult, the link is in the bio. We also will get merch. So that's always fun. But yeah, thanks again for listening and being my OG listeners. Yeah. Oh, the merch is actually really cute.
Take my $5.
You'll get some merch, some cult member only merch. But yeah, I hope you had fun coming on today. It's your first podcast.
It was amazing.
Technically, your only podcast since you don't listen to any podcasts. Now you're officially kind of a podcaster because you've been on one.
I very much so want you to invite me back.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely have you on again for sure. Are there other countries you're interested in to learn about?
Any and all. Like okay, you've blown my mind.
Yeah, it's fun to learn about everything because I definitely want to learn about these countries and not just be like, oh, I heard they have war there. Or it's dangerous. It's like there's so much more to these places.
Hey, that's what I said. What
I know.
Wait a minute.
But yeah, again, thanks for coming on, and stay tuned if you're a cult member for the post episode. We're gonna have some weird world news talk. But otherwise, thanks for listening, and cheers till next time, y'all.